Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. This is Laurie Smith on Blog Talk Radio. Good morning. It is 6 o'clock here in the morning, Wednesday morning, May the 18th. I'm glad to be here. This is One Child Abuse Survivor to Another, and we're on for 30 minutes. It's a live internet streaming radio broadcast from blogtalkradio.com, and chat room is open if anybody'd like to sit in there. I did pop the link in there to what we're looking at. Looking at web pages from healing.about.com called Joy to You and Me, written by Robert Burney, B-U-R-N-E-Y. And he's an author. He's a codependence therapist, and he's written a book called Codependence: The Dance of Wounded Souls. And so it's some good information. We're still working through it. He's got a lot of information about codependency, about boundaries and inner child work, and all kinds of stuff there. So if you go to the sitemap that's down at the bottom of that link, you can see that on the sitemap there. If you click on that, you can see what he's actually got there. Lots and lots of pages and lots of good information. So hopefully somebody's getting something out of this. I know I am, and it's good information for me. Just looking at the inner child work and what he's written about that. I like what he has to say about a lot of stuff, and so it's pretty good. It's pretty good stuff. So thanks for being here. I appreciate it. Excuse me, I've got bad allergies, and so it's horrible. I got to get some allergy medication, but. I'm not a counselor or therapist. I'm just a private person doing my own shows here on Blog Talk Radio. I'm just a survivor of child abuse. I just wanted to be one more voice speaking out against child abuse, really, and standing up for child rights, and also to do this show in the morning. This is my healing journey, one child abuse survivor to another. And I just, wanted to bring out information that I found was helpful and sort of go through and talk about, what I've seen in my life and what I've seen other survivors have to deal with, and looking at it, the adult survivor consequence really from growing up of being abused, right? So you have to listen at your own discretion, because all of my shows are talking about abuse, and so it's a sensitive subject, and a lot of people may find it uncomfortable, that the material might make you uncomfortable. So you have to know what's good for you to listen to, and ultimately it is your choice to listen to anything. So you have to be careful what you're listening to, and if you think the show might bother you, just turn it off. And so you have to listen at your own discretion. Young people under the age of 18, I just ask that you have permission from an adult, especially if you're a younger child, like a younger kid. Make sure you have an adult listen to the show with you to make sure it's something that it's age appropriate for you, because there's a lot of adult content on my shows and a lot of mature material. And I think kids just should be protected at all times. You know what I mean? I'm the Canada Regional Director for Dreamcatchers for Abused Children, and, we're fighting for children's rights. We're fighting to save children's lives. That's what we do. We're all volunteers, and we're out here making a lot of noise. And so, young people, you need to keep yourself safe when you're online, and you need to keep yourself safe and know know how to do that. If you're not sure how to keep yourself safe online and you haven't got that information, just type into your browser internet safety or online safety for children, things like this. And you can find websites, with lots and lots of good information on there about how to keep yourself safe online, right? So we'll get right into this topic here. This is Healing the Feelings. That's the next portion of Robert Burney's web pages. And we were already starting to look at this. And yesterday, Feeling the Feelings by Robert Burney. And he's, like I said, he's a codependence therapist, a spiritual teacher, and he's an author of a book called Codependence: The Dance of Wounded Souls. And his website is called Joy to You and Me Enterprises. And it's found at healing.about.com. And so the link is so huge, it's not shortened, and I didn't shorten it. I didn't, try to put it into one of those link places you can shorten the link. So I just grabbed the link, but it's so huge you can't even read it out. So he says here, there's no quick fix. He says understanding the process does not replace going through it. There's no magic pill, no magic book, no guru or channeled entity that can make it possible to avoid the journey within, the journey through the feelings. So this is what he's talking about here, feeling the feelings. And he says the only one who can turn on your heart is you. The only one who can give your inner children healthy parenting is you, and the only healer who can heal you is within you. So it's quite interesting what he has to say here. And he says that when I'm working with someone and they start having some feelings coming up, the first thing I have to tell them is to keep breathing. Most of us have learned a variety of ways to control our emotions, and one of them is to stop breathing and close our throats. So that's what he's written here. That is because grief in the form of sadness accumulates in our upper chest, and breathing into it helps some of it to escape. So we learn to stop breathing at those moments when we start getting emotional, when our voice is breaking. So he says that emotions are a vital part of our being for several reasons, and we were talking about this yesterday. He says because it is energy, and energy cannot just disappear. The emotional energy generated by circumstances of our childhood and early life does not go away just because we were forced to deny it. It is still trapped in our body in a pressurized explosive state as a result of being suppressed. So he says if we don't learn how to release it in a healthy way, it will explode outward or implode back in on us. Eventually it will transform into some other form, such as cancer. So that's what we were talking about yesterday. And a lot of people do that, and mainly it's for survival, so you can keep on going. You know what I mean? I think a lot of people suppress a lot of things and don't allow themselves to take the time to deal with things or to feel things that that they need to feel, because the days are busy, especially for adult survivors who are trying to go through their healing journey, but in the meantime have to have a family to raise, maybe have children, might have might be have a job and a career that they just can't take time off from to do this work and stuff like that. And most of us probably are in many of those situations where we just don't have the time necessary and the resources necessary to allow ourselves to do this kind of grief work or feeling the feelings type of thing, because we have to work. We can't show up to work a mess, you want to a lot of us are high functioning, you know what I mean? And so we go to work and we do our thing, and then in our spare time when we're at home, we sort of might have a little bit of a breakdown and allow ourselves to feel this stuff just because we can, because we're in the privacy and safety of our own home. But many people can't even do it then because they have children. They don't want their children to see them unhappy and sad or down because they're allowing themselves to feel this stuff. And so it's kind of hard. It's hard on people, you know what I mean? Like I myself don't have any children, so my spare time is my spare time. I still have to work and stuff, so I'm busy working, and I'm a somewhat busy person. But the thing is when I do have my free time, it is my time, and so I'm actually kind of in a better place than a lot of people, because I can spend some time looking at this stuff, allowing myself to feel some things and allowing myself to work through some things without any interruptions. So, it's helpful, but I know a lot of people don't have that luxury, and so it's hard on people, and so we just keep suppressing it, just not dealing with it because we don't have, we're not in that place to be able to deal with it or whatever. And it's very hard on a person. So that's kind of what I was talking about yesterday. And I said as long as we have pockets of pressurized emotional energy that we have to avoid dealing with, those emotional wounds will run our lives. And he says we use food, cigarettes, alcohol, drugs, work, religion, exercise, meditation, television, etc. to help us keep suppressing that energy. So I think that's interesting, that whole kind of addiction thing. I mean, I have an addictive personality, and it's probably, I just absolutely think it has everything to do with my childhood. You know what I mean? I'm still looking for something. I'm looking for something I missed out on as a child, which was nurturing and love and that bond, with my parents and that, just that whole feeling of peace and comfort, as a child. I think I'm still trying to comfort her from so long ago, which is myself today. So, addictions throughout my life have been a problem, mainly with drug addiction until the age of 21. And then, of course, I just kept smoking cigarettes, so I'm still addicted to cigarettes. I did it for a year and 2 months, so 14 months I quit smoking, but I was back at it again, and, I got stressed out, and, which is really stupid because I was doing so good, I would have completely quit smoking. And so, these things can haunt us, throughout our lifetime, and I think, like a lot of people, the food can be an addiction. Food is a problem for me, but mainly just because I like to eat, so I don't have any eating disorders. I just really enjoy eating, so I have to watch how much I'm eating because I tend to be tipping the scales a bit, and because I find food comforting, right? It's a comfort thing, right? So I have to be careful, you know what I mean? And I don't want to put too much weight on. My body won't take it. My body is not capable of carrying extra weight, just from too many injuries, too many accidents, and too much abuse. You know what I mean? So I just can't. I have to be very careful how much weight I put on, and it's hard because I'm always looking for that comforting thing. So then I smoke because I'm like, well, okay, then I'll just smoke, or drink my coffee. I have this whole routine that I do, this whole coffee cigarette thing, and it's hard for me to break that. I did it for a year and 2 months, so 14 months, but I put on about 30 pounds, and of course that was miserable, but at least I wasn't smoking. But then I started smoking again, and of course I had to wait there, so that was all for pretty much for nothing, which is a drag. But lots of people have addictions, that we'll keep ourselves as survivors, as adult survivors of abuse. We might keep ourselves really busy, doing all kinds of stuff. Working can be an addiction, right? Where you just work all the time. People will stay focused on work or projects and things like that. Excuse me. And many times people will do that so that they don't have to take a look at what's really going on in their lives. And it's good to work and it's good to be productive, but it's also good to rest. We have to find a balance, and I think that that's hard for people, even whether people were abused or not. I think that finding the balance is really hard for most people, and so if you've been abused, it's just that much harder. That's why I do these shows, because I know what it's like to be coming from behind the 8 ball, trying to get around and trying to maneuver through this life, already coming in a bad situation as a child. So, it's not easy, right? It's not easy for anybody, but it's especially not easy for people who have had a bad start, So he says to help us keep ourselves focused on something else, anything else besides the emotional wounds that terrify us. That's why we would use food, cigarettes, alcohol, drugs, and whatnot, work, religion, exercise, anything to keep us from actually doing that. Taking a look at that, what's inside of us. You know what I mean? So he says the emotional wounds are what cause obsession and compulsion, and are what the critical parent voice works so hard to keep us from dealing with. So it's quite interesting. That critical parent voice, that voice inside of us that tells us, oh, you're no good, or you're just worthless, or you'll never make it, this type of stuff, or whatever that inner voice is that talks to us and tells us negative things about ourselves and keeps us from realizing our positive strengths and keeps us from realizing the things that we're doing in our life that are good, so we can focus on some positive stuff. Many times that inner critical voice, that critical parent voice he's talking about, will, keep you down because it'll continually remind you of stuff maybe from the past. Like my mom's voice is always popping into my head. It's just from the memories that I have of her. They were so, the verbal abuse and the emotional, psychological abuse and the physical abuse from her just really made a profound impact on my life. And I can still hear her voice, cursing me, right? And it didn't pop any time during the day. And I'll be like, I don't have to listen to that voice anymore. She's in the grave 16 years. I'm like, into my 40s and living my life. And I'm thinking, why am I still listening to that voice? I don't listen to it anymore, I'll tell you that. And, but it's just memories, just things popping back in. But sometimes I'll have an inner critical voice that's really my own voice that tells me, I don't measure up to other people's, standards or beliefs of what I should be doing or who I am, and I think that's just a low self-esteem issue. And so, of course, I'm always doing a lot of negative self-talk. But this last 4 years, I really started to turn that around because I realized that, hey, that's not true at all, So I actually started to realize that was all just a lot of negative, false stuff that I was telling myself and allowing myself to believe about myself. And sometimes it's easy to do, especially if you don't have anybody telling you you're doing a great job, or if you never had anybody tell you, oh, you're doing wonderful, you're doing great, just keep up the good work, or whatever, and you're just sort of on your own, and people aren't telling you any positive stuff. It's real easy to kind of come down on ourselves, especially if we're making mistakes or making some bad choices. We might start to think, oh, I'm just useless, I'm worthless, I'm just giving up. And a lot of times I think that's what happens to people. Because I know how easy it is for myself just to get to that point where I feel like, oh man, like how am I going to do this? I don't have the skills. I don't have, what I need, and then I sit back at the end of the day and I say, yes, I do. That's that inner critical voice, trying to bring me down, right? And I choose not to listen to it anymore, because I'm like, hey, other people are doing it, I can do it, and I have to keep working just like everybody else. Even people who are not abused have to keep going. So there's no excuse, you know what I mean? It's however we decide we're going to look at ourselves and how we decide how we're going to see things is how we're going to spend our day, right? And we can't. That's why 4 years ago I really decided. I said, man, that's it. I'm not gonna allow the abuse I suffered to rule my life anymore. I'm just going to get help and get well and learn how to live this life and how to do things and how to rely on myself and how to take help from others and how to be good to myself. And it's been a good 4 years, but we have to make that decision, at some point, that we want to have a better life, we want to see better days, because nobody can do that for us. And that's where I was 4 years ago, thinking that somebody somewhere would be able to do that for me. And when I finally realized, man, it's going to have to be me, I was like, oh my God, it's going to have to be me. And of course, that's a real sometimes it's a scary realization because it's like, do I have the fortitude to do this? Am I strong enough? Because coming from, being abused like that and spending your life with a dysfunctional, really rude family, an abusive family, even though my family can't physically abuse me, what are they going to do, come over and punch me in the face, Like I can press charges, you know what I mean? I'm 45. The thing is like, it's just all this stuff from the past, and you think, man, can I really overcome that? Can I really learn to have joy in my life? Can I really learn how to love myself and how to really love other people? Because you can't really love anybody else unless you love yourself. You have to know what love is. So in order to do that, you have to learn how to love yourself. And I had to learn how to do that. So I had to really work on that the first year and allow myself to love that person inside of me and love myself now and love that child from my childhood who was so mistreated and so ugly. Like I really felt like she was, because she was so wounded. You know what I mean? And no, that's why people have a hard time with child abuse. That's why people don't want to look at it, because it's so incredibly ugly. It's so heinous. You notice there's so many people out there in the world. This is getting off topic here a little bit, but in the world, and I just want to complain about this just a little bit, because there's children dying of childhood diseases out there, which is very sad, and I support all the work and research done to cure childhood cancers and childhood diseases. Absolutely, I do. But the thing is people are way happy to join things that will promote research for childhood diseases, and they'll get on board, they'll donate thousands of dollars, no problem. But abused children, you start talking about abused children, and immediately people split. They don't want to hear about it, they don't want to know about it. Nobody cares about these abused children out here, and nobody cares about these kids right now who are being battered and beaten and sexually used and tortured and burned and killed and maimed and psychologically maltreated and emotionally abused. Nobody cares about them. You know why? Because they're ugly. Society considers them to be ugly because we don't like looking at things that are not pretty. And it forces people to look within themselves and say, wow, was I abused? Or maybe somebody knows somebody who was abused. Chances are you do. 1 in 3 to 4 girls and 1 in 6 to 7 boys will be abused in some way in their lifetime, right? So society doesn't want to see anything else about abused children. And they're just really sick and tired of seeing anything about abused children. People are just, and they like to minimize it, and make it look like there is no such thing. And I can tell you there is. And, it's so sad, right? Because as survivors then, as adult survivors, it's like my inner child is saying, somebody see me. You know what I mean? Like, I want somebody to see me. That my little inner person who is beaten and battered and abused sexually and, mistreated and burned and bruised and bloodied, and her hair's a mess, and, you know what I mean? And she's still there. And she says, somebody see me. In the meantime, I'm an adult person adult survivor who is high functioning. I can go to work, I can do things, I can hang out with my friends. I don't have any problems getting through the day at all, right? And so the world doesn't see that inner child who was abused. And that inner part of me says, I want somebody to see me, right? But the world doesn't want to see that, And so the world has a real problems with dealing with child abuse survivors and child abuse victims. And there's only a handful of people that will actually care enough to help a child who's being abused, or to help a child who has been abused, or to help an adult survivor who has been abused. Most people really don't care. And because it's ugly. No, they want to go help save other children who are dying from childhood disease. That's fine. I'm not even saying there's anything. I'm saying good. Support it. I do. But I'm saying also don't forget about these kids who are battered and beaten and sexually abused and trashed. Don't forget about them, because we exist. And we've existed forever, and it's so incredibly sad that society feels the way they do. But that's just the issue. Nobody wants to see that ugly child. Nobody wants to see that battered child, right? It's heartbreaking. But in the meantime, that child needs to be loved. That child needs to be picked up and cared for and loved and brought to safety. And so with our inner child, that inner child from so long ago, my inner child, I'll just speak about her, she needs to be picked up and cuddled and loved and told it's okay, and she's going to push back and she's going to fight back, because my little inner child, that's what she learned how to do. She learned how to not receive love. She learned how to not accept love. right? So she learned how to not accept somebody trying to hug her or hold her. And she would push other people away, little kids especially who wanted to come and hug her. She would push them away, right? Because she didn't think she deserved love, right? And she didn't want it. She didn't have it. She never had it, so why would she want it? She didn't even know she was supposed to want it. So that's where my adult person has to say, man, I got to get in touch with that little inner child and show her some love and some kindness. And, so in other words, we have to be good to ourselves. We really do. And we have to stop, stop the sabotage, the sabotaging of ourselves. You know what I mean? Self-sabotage, self-negative talk, not believing in ourselves and not even helping ourselves out, because we don't even want to look at that ugly child within us that was not wanted or beaten or abused in whatever way, and left on their own to suffer this. So we're doing the same thing society is doing, just closing a blind eye. If we don't learn how to love ourselves and we don't learn how to cherish that little person, right? And so that's what I've started to do really this last 4 years. I'm still working on it, but I'm getting so much better at it, at learning how to do it. And that's to self-nurture and self-soothe that little child from so long ago, who needs that love and that care and that concern, that she's okay and that, to show her that it's all right, that no one's going to hurt her ever again, and that she's okay and she can do it. She can learn how to live this life just like I can, this little child inside of me. So it's really something, but when you actually start looking at it, it's really quite interesting what needs to happen. And I realized as I started doing a lot of research and looking into inner child work and stuff like that, because I could see her inside of me, right? And my memories of myself at 7 years old, 8 years old, whatever, 6 years old, 12 years old. I have a teenager in there too somewhere who needs a lot of work. This is just it. It's incredibly hard, and it's not an easy journey, but it's one that's well worth doing and getting the help that we need to do it. I'm okay to do self-help, but a lot of people may not be. And so you have to look for what works for you. Group support. I did do some group support, online group support, and you could be anonymous in this group. It was great. Like I went in with my name, and that was fine. But a lot of people were in there with different names, fake names and stuff, because they didn't want anybody to know who they were. And I think that's great, because so many times people just don't want to disclose who they are, because it could lead to problems if the abuser's still living and they're fearing for their lives. And there's so many reasons why adult survivors just don't want anybody to know their real name and be able to access information about them, and also for safety purposes, And for me, I'm going worldwide public, so I thought, hey, well, it doesn't matter. I'll use my name because I plan on doing this public worldwide mission, stop child abuse, right? So it's okay I didn't mind using my name. But the thing is so many people wanted to remain anonymous, and I thought that was cool, no problem. I got involved in that group, and I was with them for about 6 months, and it was very helpful, especially at the beginning of my healing journey, because I needed to have somebody to talk to who had been through similar things as myself and understood what I was going through and how hard it is with the flashbacks, how hard it is with the feelings and the day-to-day struggle of this journey, right? It was very helpful. As a matter of fact, I would say it made all the difference to join that survivor group, right? Because these people cared, and for the first time, I felt like somebody actually heard me. And, that somebody actually, somebody actually cared, what I mean? I really cared, because my own dysfunctional family doesn't care whether I live or die. Well, they would cry a little bit if I died, but they really don't care how I'm doing. They don't care how I'm feeling or anything else, because they were lived in the same home I did. And my dysfunctional, crazy, abusive dad is still alive, and he's just the same old psychotic dad that he's always been, you know what I mean? So nothing's changed there. But I've only got a couple siblings left, you know what I mean? And they can't do anything for me, you know what I mean? And I can't even expect them to. And they're not rallying around supporting me. They actually hate what I'm doing. They hate the fact that I'm a Christian. They hate the fact that I love God. They've literally said this. They literally out loud said this. They hate the fact that I'm healing and I'm on my healing journey. They hate that I love the Bible. They hate that I love good stuff. My brother said he couldn't stand me because I love good things in the world, and I love peace, and I love the idea of treating people properly and being treated properly. He says he just hates that. My brother was abused as well. He's messed up in the head, right? So it just tells you. And my sister doesn't want to hear anything. She just wants to shop. She drowns her sorrows and all of the abuse that she suffered as a child in shopping. She's a shopaholic, and that's the only thing that brings her peace in this life. If she can't shop, she's not happy. If she can't shop, it's the end of the world. Like, her life is shopping, and so I can't relate to her because I don't care to shop, and I really hate shopping, and I only shop when I have to because it's so meaningless to me to go and purchase things. I really don't care about stuff, you know. I care about people, and I care about myself, and I don't care about things. I just go shopping because I need something. I don't go because it's fulfilling something that I'm trying to fulfill in my life to fill that empty hole, right? People and relationships fill that empty hole, and my God, right? That's what fills that hole. So I find myself having a lot more peace because, you know, I've managed to work through a lot of this stuff, but. My sister has not even began her healing journey and knows whether she ever will or not. But this is the kind of stuff, you know, I mean, it's good to get help where you can because many times in our families we don't have that help. There's not, especially in abusive, dysfunctional families, a child growing up abused is not necessarily going to have the most supportive family. They're not always, almost always never, right? Because that's why the child was abused, because there was problems in the home. You know what I mean? When a child is, like myself in my instance, when I grew up, I was born into this hellhole of parents who fought all the time, abused each other physically, verbally, emotionally, psychologically, sexually, you know, horrible, horrible people. Abused my brothers. You know, my parents were abusing all of us, both my parents, right? They were brought up on charges. They were busted. They didn't do any time. They were made to go to court, and they were made to go and get court-ordered counseling, and they were both diagnosed mentally ill at the time. But we were allowed to stay in the home. This is 1960s. Nobody really cared. And so, you know, the abuse just continued on, even with the social workers there, right? So what are you going to do? But anyway, they just skirted around everything, and they got away with it. But, you know, the thing is that, you know, so many children aren't going to have a lot of support from their families as adult survivors, because if the family was abusive and dysfunctional then, unless they went to counseling and got things straightened out, they're going to be the same exact people they were. They'll just be a lot older, right? So my brother, you know, he left when he was 16, and he has no interest in being a part of my life at all. Like, he left the family when he was 16 because of the abuse, and he just had to get out of the home. And another one of my sisters left early because she was being abused, and she split the home before the age of 18 and was married and pregnant. And that left the rest of the siblings stuck in the home. And my older brother, actually, the one who's still living, said that he was really sorry that he couldn't take us with him because he wanted to. Like, he said, there's no way I could take you with me. You were just a baby. But he says, I wanted to take all of you guys with me, but I was on the street, I was 16 years old, and there's no way I could have raised you and three brothers and another sister, 5 of us, like a 16-year-old guy, you know, on the street to raise 5 kids. I mean, come on. He wanted to, though, and he said he was really sorry that he couldn't take us out of the home, you know what I mean, because the abuse was horrid, you know, and the social workers were involved a couple of years later anyway, but they didn't stop, and the abuse never stopped, right? So this is the thing. We're not going to always have that support, right? So we have to find that support where we need it, where we can get it. And I think that's why these online group support people this is all, like, I really enjoyed that because safety in numbers. But so many times people just need a counselor, they need a therapist, they need somebody to help them work through this stuff. So whatever you do, just make sure you get some help because, man, I'm telling you, we certainly deserve so much better. And that's why I like to do these shows, because I realize that, hey, I did not deserve to be abused, and no child ever does. No one ever does, right? This is absolutely horrid that people do these things to their children, and that we have to deal with this stuff. We never should have. This is not our fault. And so how do we fix this as adults, right? You know, I mean, how do we have to literally allow ourselves to heal, you know? And that's what I did 4 years ago. I said, oh, man, I will no longer stick around in this hellhole of a life that I've actually, you know, that I'm still hanging on to from my childhood. I'm going to get some help with this, you know what I mean? So I did some, you know, group support type stuff, and I also got just on my healing journey on self-help, you know. And I've talked to some counselors and therapists just because of what I'm doing, right, with Blog Talk Radio and whatnot. And it's been great, you know, to have some input and to have, you know, to some people were really good about showing me some of the stuff I was doing to self-sabotage, which was awesome because I got to correct some of those behaviors, or I'm still working on it. But it's great, you know. So this is the thing, right? We just have to make sure we get some help and not suffer alone and suffer on our own. It's horrible, right? Thanks, everybody, for being here. I appreciate it. I'll be back tomorrow morning, same time, same place, and we'll just move on to the article here. But make sure you do reach out and get some help and never ever give up. I say this on every show, but it's very important to me because I refuse to give up and I'm going to win this fight and I hope you will stay here and do the same, right? Have a great day, everybody. Talk to you soon.